Please welcome James. James is going to talk about the next chapter. He already did this, but he's going to reiterate his points with some PowerPoint slides. So please welcome from EVS, James Stellpflug.
Thank you, Ken. So the topic here was it's a case study about how IP is already benefiting production today. And I think as Ken mentioned, ironically, it lines up a lot with the discussions on previous panels and all of that. But for sure, the thing that I think is underlining everything is that IP as a whole is really changing the pulse of the industry. How we're thinking about our problems, how we're looking to implement things, and the directions that we're going to be going. So for us at EVS, one thing I wanted to talk about is that IP has really already been able to give us tools for a long time. It's been allowing us to exchange content, to tell better stories, and we've been using it for quite a long time. And I actually remembered back, if I get this thing to advance, back to the Athens Olympics. One of the first places where I remembered that we were actually connecting venues together to give visibility of files so that people can go searching for content, delivering it back over an IP methodology back for usage in a broadcast center. So while it's not the only time it was being used, it reminds us that IP has been an enabler for a long time. It's not something that we're only looking at just now. And as we look at the lens of view for sports content, and we look back at some of the surveys that Nielsen has made regarding sports, we talk about the amount of produced content is increasing every year. Doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. We're delivering more and more content straight to fans' devices. That number there, I actually just updated from the 2015 survey, has just been climbing every single year. And for us at EVS, we've been proud to be part of a lot of that growth, enabling it by systems for how we can capture, store, and now especially deliver that content out to more places. And IP is one of the biggest enablers which allowed us to do that. And for us, the way we've been using IP is talking about some of the biggest events on the global scale. So we talk about this past summer's events that come to mind, being the Euro, also being the Olympics. And the case study I wanted to talk about is a little bit about how we used it at the Euro event this past June for the year, and how we started from things like in the past doing Super Bowls, and going forward to things like the World Cup, if I get my clicker to go, to World Cups, and delivering more and more content to unprecedented number of fans out there. When I look at this, and I look at the past Olympics core, that system is similar to what was being enabled for the Euro Cup. So when I look at this, it was enabled by IP in many different aspects. So from the case study point of view, we look all around France. We have the different venues doing production. That's the OB, the production trucks, all around the entire country. And we talked about ENG crews, ones gathering content, shooting on various cameras, needing to access and groom and find their content, all to be delivering that back to the broadcast center in Paris. But those tools there, the two sites, were enabled by an IP fabric. The ability for ENG crews to plug in from a laptop, allowing them to sit on an HTML5 dashboard on a workstation, or allowing them from the broadcast trucks to have gateways there to be able to bring back that content, delivering it into the core of the broadcast operations, which was put in place to consolidate content, to be able to bring all that back so that editorial teams can build more, so producers can find more, and ultimately that was built to be able to allow the rest of the broadcast partners of the Euro event to keep more people at home. So by giving them the right tools, content comes from the origination sites around the country, enables that high volume of content to show up in a central core for searchability, and ultimately allows those production crews to get home to look in, find content, make choices from that content, and contribute back EDLs into the broadcast center, or actually take that content and go straight out and deliver it to consumers. The other point of view where IP was enabling workflows of the event is the same one we've done for the past couple of cycles for the big events and a lot of our perpetual customers, is taking content from live events and going straight to consumer. Right? Don't necessarily have to pass through the broadcast center to deliver new experiences straight to phones, mobile devices, and all of that. So CCast in delivering content through the cloud straight out to a scalable audience around the globe, or our CNext platform, which is giving us monitoring between the sites to coordinate those IP movements from truck to broadcast center and broadcast center to and from production crews. IP is really the core of what's enabling that. And as we look at these different steps of how IP has already been giving us a lot of great tools, we start to look at what's next after we see the benefits we raised here, which was giving us cost savings in staff, cost savings in content and syndication, places where you couldn't have done this with linear methodologies in the past. So the panel we had earlier and a lot of the topics are about how we're now looking to put IP at the rest of the layer, which is down to infrastructure. I usually put this slide up here because it's fun talking about the consumers today, and I think about my kids, the ones who are looking for a different level of content. So IP is one of those things that has to give us the tools to build more sets of content out to more audiences, and you definitely can't do that by racking and stacking more physical gear and running up against all the walls of those linear barriers. So production sites have to exchange more and more content between them, right? We're seeing examples here like the NFL sites, which are moving high volumes of content from production trucks to broadcast center, trying to get that content into the hands of production crews. And one of the biggest problems is that when you're moving files today, a lot of people do these ad hoc workflows. They do drop folders. You move things out. You plop them in a folder. You hope it's moving through the next chain. Someone in the broadcast center cannot see what's going on. So there's a lot of blind spots in file movements today. And those are some of the things that we at EVS try and solve. And the next layer where we and other vendors are trying to solve is about using IP for the infrastructure, like I was jumping into. So now you're starting to see systems from EVS and other vendors that have direct connectivity for IP for the live flows. The connectability from cameras to servers to multi-viewers and monitors to production switchers and all the way through the chain. IP is going to give us that flexibility, but the open standards that we and other vendors have been talking about for the last year are the enablers of that. So for us, why we as EVS joined the AIMS Alliance was to help accelerate that use of IP for the infrastructure layers. So the way I like to put it is that AIMS and the organization of all the vendors and the end users who are participating in the alliance help light the rocket that's going to take us to the next layer of building truly open, interoperable systems based on IP. That's really the ability that you can choose whatever vendor you want, you can tie it together with IP, and do it on an off-the-shelf switch network. So for us at EVS, the broad view that we take is an initiative we started a couple years ago called IP for Live, of how we're driving IP at many different layers of our business. That talks about how we deal with the problem solving of content capture, how we deal with the aspects of production tools and leveraging IP, how we deal with distribution, straight out to new audiences, creating new revenue. And now we turn focus on using IP for more of the infrastructure, getting into the content computing, using those off-the-shelf components to build a more scalable, a more virtualized environment, as we've been talking about on today's panels. And we keep announcing the different tool sets from EVS, where our Divi production switcher, which was an early entrant in the space, being a purely IP distributed fabric of production switching, not a typical switcher with an with an IP card. Divi is something built on the building blocks of IP and distributed IT fabrics. I brought up the slide earlier, and we talked about the interoperability. So for us, we like to enable a lot of our customers. The VRT project in Europe, which is called Live IP, was a great example of a real facility which went out with multi-vendors, built an IP fabric, and everything connected directly over IP. And now I get to wing it because now I got no slide up there. But they built it on IP so that all the connectability between different vendors' devices was built on that IP backbone. And they believed in it so much, they went through a proof of concept. They took this IP system they built using us and other vendors, and they rolled it out and used it live during the Olympics. Then they took that because we wanted to show the rest of the world how content could be done, how you can build a production system with IP today. And we take that system, we brought it to IBC. Because what better way to show people an idea at the IBC trade show how we can build systems with IP, but that live IP system was put in place as a real-world demonstration to power the actual IBC television platform and how they created all the live content at the event. So it wasn't just a vendor, a single vendor, or a couple of vendors showing something that might have had fake stuff behind the curtain. It was a real live working system using IP that was delivered today. So as a high level on the case study, that's where I wanted to talk about the fact that IP is nothing new. We've been using it for a long time to solve business problems around contribution, file access for fans, delivery of new content to new revenue sources. It's been there for a long time, and the next part now is to use it for the rest of the IP infrastructure. We're happy to talk with more people about it. And one of the fun parts that we showed at the SIMPTE conference, and there are my slides back, that we showed at the IP conference this past October was how we're using IP for the next layer. So because we've now broken down the barrier of SDI and point-to-point connections, IP allows us to build a whole new layer of virtualization that gives us the tool sets to take things, and like we showed at the SIPD conference, was taking complex production functions, ingest, playout, transcode, content access, and things that normally for EVS would have been very treated in a proprietary bespoke hardware. We were showing that we can run these things in off-the-shelf hardware, that we can do this with the IP open standards that the AIMS Alliance and others have recommended by moving it around with TRO3, soon to be the SMPTE 2110, and showing that we can build new evolutions in production fabrics with these tool sets. So for us at EVS, IP for Live is one of our initiatives for how we're using IP at every corner of our business and how we go. And the case study earlier was to talk about how it's enabling us in today's ecosystem. So with that, that's our connected live story at EVS of how we're trying to connect all the production sites. Let's build better ways for us to build production fabrics and using IP as the enabler. With that, I'm all done, and thank you, everyone.